My name is Richard Halperin, and I was born and raised here in Savannah. And I went to school here, and I worked here, and always came to the JEA when it was on Barnett Street downtown, and then when it moved out here. And my father had a shoe store downtown on Broughton and West Broad. And I used to work there, and everybody else would go to synagogue downtown, and I used to have to work. And, during the week, we used to spend lots of times at the JEA downtown playing basketball and games and different things like that. And then, I can't remember the exact date when they moved out to Abercorn Street here, but then we came out to this one and went to Hebrew school here. And we used to do different things after we came from regular school at Hebrew school. And some of the rabbis and teachers and different people that we had teaching used to, if we were bad, doing bad things, like talking in class or whatever, throwing spitballs out at different cars, we used to get thrown down the stairs at the JEA. So, I used to spend a lot of time in Mr. Rosenberg's office in Hebrew, because after going to school for 6 hours, 8 hours, I didn't feel like coming to Hebrew school, but I did, and after the 6 years of Hebrew school, I got bar mitzvahed, and everybody was happy, and I'm back here in Savannah now, working at Publix as a baker. I had my own business for 20 years, and that was enough. And I don't know what else to say.
Your parents, when did they first come to the Savannah area? Or your grandparents, what generation, and what kind of businesses were they in?
My father was in the shoe business, and his brother brought him down here. He was in the wholesale. His brother was in the wholesale business, and my father was in the retail shoe business. And they were from up north, New Jersey, and they were born and raised there. And my grandparents were from Poland, and they were up north. Everybody was from up north, and they moved down here. And he was in the service, and my mother was here, and that's when they both came down.
Well, let me ask you, do you remember when you were growing up, your parents or your extended family ever talking about difficulties they had in business because they were Jews?
No, not really. I mean, when my dad had a shoe store, he would buy shoes, and it was like on from Broughton to Montgomery Street, where a lot of Jewish families had businesses on that street, and that's, they never really had any problems.
Was most of their clientele Jewish clientele, or was
No.
it mixed?
It was mixed. A lot of different kind of people. Most of the people down there when we were in business, were the black people.
Yeah, they catered.
And I used to sell, when I was 10 years old, 8 years old, at my father's store. I used to have during the holidays, we used to sell roller skates and dolls and all that stuff. I'd open up like a table and sell it during the holidays, the Christmas holidays, and they'd buy that. I'd go buy a pair of skates for $5 and sell them for $10. And I made money, and then we used to try and save our money, but we used to spend it. And we used to go to the Avon Theater downtown, and I think it was $25, and 2 bottle caps or something like that to get in a movie. And it was one of the older theaters here, and the rats used to run across in front of us.
What was your favorite movie back then? Can you remember?
No.
Were you Shabbos observant in your family? Or did you go to the movies on Saturday, like so many people have told me?
We went, well, sometimes I went to synagogue. Not all the time, because I was usually working in my dad's store. And when we had to go for the Jewish holidays, you know, he'd close his store and observe that for the Jewish holidays. And I wanted to go to synagogue, but sometimes I didn't want to go to synagogue. I'd rather work. So.
What is it like to be a child with that kind of awesome responsibility of having to work to help support the family? Did you feel like this was a burden that you had, or were you happy to help your family out, or was it what all the children did?
I think it was, my opinion was, I did it because I wanted to, really. And I did. It's not that they asked me for the money that I made or whatever. They did pay me for working, and then I could buy my own stuff that I wanted. But it wasn't really for me being made to do it. I could have told them that I didn't want to do it, but, I think I probably would have been in a lot of hot water. So.
Did you experience any segregation when you were going to school because you were Jewish, or any anti-Semitism when you tried to join clubs or tried to play certain sports?
No, when I was in high school, we were the first class to graduate with, it was integration. And in the lower classes, we never really had any problems with the non-Jews and the Jews.
What about between Christian and Jew?
No, everybody knew I was Jewish. And we didn't, we got together, we played together, and in fact, most of my friends were non-Jewish.
What teams did you join?
Some of the, like, soccer teams and baseball and no football. And then in high school I was in the band and played 2 instruments, and there was no problem with the kids in high school or anything like that.
Was there any difficulty if you weren't able to play for a Friday night game or because of a Jewish holiday?
For the Jewish holidays, no. If there was a Friday night game, sometimes I would play on Friday nights. When I got older, when I was younger, I didn't do that.
What is the way in which you learned that you were Jewish? Is it at your parents' aprons? Is it because of a formal religious education? Or is there some other way that you always knew that you were Jewish?
Well, the rituals that we followed going to synagogue, and being bar mitzvahed, and knowing that that's what we were. We were Jewish. What's
your favorite Jewish food growing up?
Oh, probably chopped liver.
It's tennis.
How did you decide on a path that involved cooking? And I know some of that cooking has you baking challah. So in some ways you are actually using what you know about Judaism to help create some ritual items for the rest of the community. How are there other ways in which being Jewish found its way into your work day?
Yeah, I've always liked to bake. I like to cook sometimes, and being that I'm Jewish, I wanted to do challahs and different things like that. And then I had my business for 20 years, and we made a nice living at that. And it wasn't kosher, of course, but
When you were growing up, the Gottliebs would have had their bakery, or was that already
They had, I
defunct?
worked there for 10 years. I worked at Gottlieb's for 10 years.
What was your favorite thing to make when you were working at Gottlieb's?
I was really the manager, and I really didn't bake there. I did do some baking. I mean, they had their own bakers and stuff like that. But I ran the store, and I love the caramel rolls and the chocolate chewies and the little sprinkle cookies.
Are those things that you make yourself these days?
Yeah, but the recipe is different.
Okay.
It's in the book, but it's not the same.
It never is.
Right.
Tell me about raising children Jewish in the South. Is there something that you had to do that you think Northern parents do differently?
No, not really. I don't think it's different, but, you know, kids nowadays have their own minds, and you have to really force them sometimes. You just have to keep drilling it in their head that they're going to, you know, they're Jewish, they're going to be bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, and follow up on that. After they turn 13, it gets a little harder even.
I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'm going to talk to your wife, and then we'll come back to you as a couple. All right, so if you had an opportunity to crystallize what it means to you to be Jewish, and you give it as a special nugget to your children, what is that words of wisdom? Or your grandchildren? It's easier to talk to grandchildren than it is to children.
Well, I mean, you know, just to make sure that people know that you're Jewish. Don't be afraid to tell people that you're Jewish. And observe the holidays, all the holidays. We try to do it with our family. It's tough sometimes. So
Thank
that's
you.
about it.
Let me switch over. Okay, would you introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about your background and when and what brought you to Savannah?
I'm Vickie Halperin. I'm married to Richard. We're going to be married 45 years this fall, and we have 2 children. And we came to Savannah when our children were 5 and 7, maybe 5 and 7, and we joined the B.B. Jacob, which was his synagogue all along with Rabbi Rosenberg, not to be confused with Rosenberg, that was
Mr. Rosenberg.
Mr. Rosenberg, that was the teacher at their Hebrew
The
school.
principal.
Oh, the principal at the school back then. Rabbi Rosenberg was his Rebbe, and became my Rebbe when I came to Savannah.
You have a very interesting backstory, and I would like to move away from Savannah for a minute. Tell me about growing up Jewish and coming to the United States.
Well, I did not grow up Jewish. I came to the United States when I was almost 10 years old, around that time. And we came with a Peter Pan group of children from Cuba that were sent without their parents, and there was 14,000 children in the group that came with us. And when we were in Florida, at Florida City, where they had a campament for all of the children, the different churches took upon themselves to help different groups. And we had an orphanage, and it was a Catholic, I think it was a public orphanage, but it was run by the nuns and the priests, the Catholic nuns and priests, and one of the people involved in it came and asked, gave a speech in reference to, do you want to go? Well, at the time, I was here with my older sister who was a year older than me, and my younger sister who was a year younger than me. So it was the three of us, and we were like 8, 9, and 12 years old, or 10, 11, and 12 years old. We were just like 1 year apart, all of us. So we were pretty young, and we were brought into the office to find out whether we would be willing to go to Colorado, to the orphanage there that was making itself available to host or to keep some of the children that came from Cuba without parents. And that's how we ended up in Colorado for years without our parents. Finally came. Wait a minute.
I was
You're not
going to
gonna
just
stay
make
here.
one point. I think Savannah is progressive. I think it's much more inclusive. It's a majority to minority city now, or so they claim, and whatever. But I think a lot of people are coming in. I think a lot of Europeans, a lot of ethnic groups, but whether it's drawing a Jewish population, and I think he has a valid point. They came in from small towns. All these merchants, they came in, their children were born in Savannah, and they stayed here for. But now there is nothing to draw them in, and we have the Russian sort of migration for a while here, so we took in those people. I don't know who else, except for professionals who are seeking, doctors, lawyers, whatever they may be, or they may be execs at Gulfstream. But I don't know who else they're bringing in as far as the Jewish population.
The model for industry seems to have changed. We've gone from Jews being small merchants to being professionals at universities, but
Or consultants.
consultants, so they really are not necessarily in charge of their own businesses anymore in
No, they're
terms
not
of
merchants.
they're not merchants. So it's not a matter of being able to serve a population and sticking with it. They are mobile, I guess, like the
They're
most
all
of the
mobile. They don't even have companies anymore. They share office space. A lot of, like my son is a consultant. He consults out of his house. He does all his work there. He doesn't have to have an office.
So when I talk to people about the establishment of the JEA, and they say, well, in those days, you couldn't belong to the Oglethorpe Club, you couldn't belong to the golf club,
That's true.
Jews needed to have their own clubs, the Harmony Club, they needed to have their own
That's right.
community centers. Well, there's a certain amount of fluidity now between Jews and non-Jews in society and acceptance. Has that hurt us as a people?
You forgot to tell her one thing about your uncle, that how civil rights minded he was. He was like an activist. He really was.
He was such an activist that he had a cross burned on his lawn.
Do you remember the story? Can you tell me?
Well, no, I
about
don't
that?
know why. It's just that he was one of the few white folks in this city who was trying to push for black rights.
And which uncle is this?
Abram Osman. And just amazing. He was like this in the 30s. He'd become, like many Jews in the 30s, became socialists because they didn't think capitalism was the way to go, and if they were Jews were socialists, basically. Jews were for human rights. And this is the next step that they took.
Who came to his aid when the cross was burnt on his lawn?
I have no idea. Probably no one.
So it wasn't, they wrote for the newspaper. Do you have an article?
I don't think he wrote for the newspaper. You would have to go back to I want to say the 50s or early 60s when this happened and find out if there's anything in the newspaper about it. As far as I know, no one came out because he wasn't a religious Jew, so he didn't have any affiliation there. His affiliation was, if at anything, was at the JEA, if it there. He was like the first Jew at the Savannah Golf Club.
just because he was a good tennis player, they took him in.
Of all the things that you've done growing up in Savannah, what was your favorite activity and what's your favorite memory? And conversely, what's your worst memory of growing up in Savannah or in a small southern area?
Well, growing up in Savannah in the 40s and 50s, you have to remember, it was a small population. But you had 3,000 to 4,000 Jews living here, which made it a very interesting community. And like I tell everybody, they had chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry synagogues. You had one of each. So that made it very unique. You couldn't say that probably from Baltimore down to Miami, where you could make that statement. There were no other communities that had that. It made Savannah uniquely Jewish uniqueness, I think. Savannah was fortunate in the fact that the civil rights were never as devastating here as in other places. I think it's still not good, but it was a lot better in Savannah than in other cities. It made life easier and tolerated.
How did Jewish businessmen get along? Was it healthy competition? Was it helping each other? Was it acrimonious at times?
Well, I don't know. I was never involved with that, but I would, if you're saying Jewish businesses, if you notice, the Jewish businesses don't exist like they did 50 years ago. They sent their children, as you say, to professional school, to do something else. They didn't want them to be in that business. Very few stayed in that business.
Is there any relative that that while you were growing up you really emulated, that you just adored when this particular person was at a table for the holidays? Or
Uncle Saul.
okay. Tell me about Uncle Saul.
Uncle Saul was my mother's uncle, my grandmother's brother, and he had another brother here, Norman Robbins. And Saul was just a wonderful, happy person. He had a dry goods business on West Broad Street. And he sent his children away, and they didn't come back until now. My story is nobody comes back to Savannah except to go to Bonaventure. They all dying to get into Bonaventure is the story. It's very interesting that very few people come back here except to go to Bonaventure.
You mentioned that the name was Rabinowitz and then
Rabinowitz,
became Robbins.
Well, I guess when you go to Ellis Island.
It was changed at Ellis, or they changed for business
I think that's
reasons?
where it got changed. No. Absolutely. As far as I know, they've always been known as Robbins. I never knew him as Rabinowitz, but we use that in conversation.
Tell me about the importance of Jewish education in terms of the next generation.
It was very important to me. If if I was gonna do something, I was gonna do it the right way and all the way. And I have always been accused of overdoing things. I always tell my sisters that if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it all the way. I'm not gonna do it halfway. And that's the way it is. I mean, like, even to my father, I said to him, after being here a few years, if he had not sent us out of Cuba, I said I probably would have been a pretty good communist. So, in order to education per se, we sent the children to our children to the Hebrew Day School. Pretty much the whole time. We went to synagogue. Every Shabbos. We had Friday night dinners. Richard's sister Rita, who married into the Asher family, we always had family dinners. We always had the high holidays were always high holidays. We always took 2 days off. We were in synagogue all the time. And it was very important to me that the children one of the reasons why I really wanted to come to Savannah with my husband and my children was because I wanted them to know their Jewish roots here. And I, that's why we moved here, and that's what we were going to do, and that's what we did, pretty much.
Richard, do you think that you accomplished that goal of teaching your children not only religion, but you also taught them something about being part of a Jewish community because you moved back to Savannah?
I think I did. I mean, sometimes it was tough, but we did do it, and we tried to, not real well, I guess, sometimes force them to, go with us, but
Just
after a
instill
while,
in them.
yeah, it's
instilling
instilled.
in them
The
Judaism.
Judaism is there.
They played in all the sports. I mean,
Right.
we have pictures of Sydney and Stephanie both. In every year they were
The swim
soccer,
team.
the swim team, and everything was done through the JEA, which I miss that a lot. When our grandchildren were born, Stephanie stayed in Savannah. When they were born, we tried to continue that same with them, and they came to the Ramban Day School. Charlotte graduated from the Ramban Day School. Chelsea came to 6th grade. They swam with the swim team. They came to camp. That was one of the things that summertime for our children, for Stephanie and Sydney, was here at the JEA.
Is it more difficult now because there's so many more options open to children and their lives are so much busier with school activities?
Oh, yeah. It's harder because of all the different areas like the Y and there's a lot of competition, a lot more competition now.
Well, I think that also, when the children are a certain age, it's a little different. I think I've always felt that, and I think that I pretty much accomplished or tried to accomplish that. Children will do what their parents tell them to do, or they will learn what parents will teach them. Now, whether they will follow through on it, which, that's another story. But to teach them, I think that, that was it. We didn't really give them much choices to go outside of there. This was our life. The JEA, B.B. Jacobs Synagogue, that was our whole entire life was surrounded by Judaism. So it wasn't that, they had other friends that were Jewish, but even asking Richard about his growing up here in Savannah, from what I have learned, and I've pretty involved with the Jewish community. I've always tried to be, and they were pretty much integrated, so that the children were always with other Jewish kids. It wasn't that so that's why they don't see anti-Semitism so much, because they were involved with their groups. I know in school, and I wasn't there, so I don't really know 100%, but from just listening to them talk, I see that there are the groups. When Stephanie was Bas Mitzvah, she was Bas Mitzvah with 9 girls. 9 girls were in her class. That was the first Bas Mitzvah that Rabbi Slater did when he came to Savannah. Since then, so you see, how close our family, I feel like our Judaism is. That Rabbi Slater's did 3 generations already. So I became Bas Mitzvah, my daughter came Bas Mitzvah, and our son got Bar Mitzvah. Our granddaughter got, it was like, our granddaughters got Bas Mitzvah by Rabbi Slater's. So, we have deep roots at the B.B. Jacob, and we love we love Judaism, and that's, is very important. I do love Judaism, and I hope and pray that one day my children will come around, and my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren will be the same. So,
I want to ask something totally different. Most Jews that come from southern climes, Spain, but are Sephardi. They're southern Jews, and there's a whole different set of rituals. However, most Jews coming from European countries are Ashkenazic. Since you came to Judaism as a Jew of choice, but you were trained in Miami, did you learn Sephardic customs or Ashkenazic customs? And does it matter?
no, it's right. It didn't matter so much, even though it did, and I feel it sometimes. And it's really funny because I remember Mrs. Garfunkel when Charlie Garfunkel, of blessed memory, when I met her, she asked me what my full name was, and I told her, and she said, Migdalia. Okay, Migdalia means, in Hebrew, it means little tower. And I was very surprised that she said that to me, I asked my mom, why she gave me that name. And she said she didn't know, that it just came to her. And that's the name she gave me. And the same thing with my other sister's name is Dora. So there was, Dora was Rosenberg's mom's name. And if you can tell by the names that I mentioned, yeah, you probably didn't even know these people, but these were the older people that were like our age now. Back then, when I came to Savannah when I was 27 years old, and these were the elder people here that really, touched me in such deep ways. I mean, the Kramers, all, relative to Savannah and to me myself, because that's how I felt, that they were like our, you learn from them. Whether it was religion or just life in general, we learn from them. And these elderly people. And so anyway, Dora was Stanley Rosenberg's mom, I believe, right? And when I said to her, "Oh, my sister's name is Dora," she said, "Oh, really? Is she Sephardic? Were you all Sephardic?" So it was really kind of, yeah. I mean, I guess maybe we were. Who knows? I said, I don't know.
Maybe this all was very shared, and you were always Jewish to begin with.
That's right. You never know.
But did you ever feel any kind of prejudice, not necessarily because you're Jewish, but because you're Hispanic in the Savannah community?
No. Yeah, it was really funny because just recently I said it's really strange that now, after so many years, I always consider myself an American anyway, because, and I had these shirts that said, "I'm proud to be American, Jewish, Spanish." I had these shirts with all the writings on them, and I would walk around with them, and everybody's like looking at me like, okay, what is she? But I just did that, it's like, I was proud of what I was. Spanish, Cuban, American Jew. That was my business. What? Where are you from? Spanish, Cuban, American Jew. Anyway, so, that was my...
In Miami, we called my friends Jubans.
Jubans, that's right.
Jewish Cubans,
Yeah.
Jewish Cuban Americans. But a lot of my Cuban friends are not Jewish. They're Catholic. Did you ever come at odds with other Cubans who couldn't understand that you were also Jewish?
No. As a matter of fact, growing up in an orphanage with all the religious nuns, it was very interesting to me because I was very much, I respected them very much. And even though we have hard feelings because of ways that they had of teaching were, rough. I always feel very thankful to them and to America in general, to everyone that I came in contact because of that. Because they really, whether it was hard, of course it's hard on young people, young children that get separated from the parents. But you learn. It's a lesson in life. And I think that through all of this, my entire life, I think it's been a learning experience, of thankfulness really for everything.
You're coming on 45 years of marriage, a lot of it in Savannah. What is it that the two of you feel that Judaism has given you as a couple, that Savannah has given you as a couple, and that you hope you've passed on to your children and grandchildren?
That they can stay together with their husbands and wives as long as we have, and just work together. And it takes two of you to work. You have to work with each other. You have your good times and your bad times, and just work it out with each other, and don't just give it up. Sometimes you have to eat crow.
I think that I would say having Shabbos dinner every Friday night, and bringing the family together at all the high holidays, all the Jewish holidays, and building the sukkah. I think that it has instilled in my children and my grandchildren, even though they are not at a stage in their lives where they're really much, very active at all in Judaism. I think that, and I hope that's one thing that we have instilled in them: loyalty to their Rebbe and their Jewishness and their Yiddishkeit. Gotta have Yiddishkeit. So.
Thank you very much. Good interview.